Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, watching the stars drift past the main view screen. The research vessel had been traveling through deep space for 3 months now, searching for mineral deposits that could help Earth's growing colonies. It was quiet work, the kind that let a man think about home and wonder if the endless black was worth the discoveries they made. The bridge was small compared to military ships Jake had served on before. Only 6 stations arranged in a neat circle around the captain's chair. Dr. Lisa Parker sat at the science station running scans on a nearby asteroid field. Her dark hair fell across her face as she studied the readings, occasionally making notes on her tablet. At communications, Tony Rodriguez monitored the usual background chatter of space traffic, though out here on the rim there wasn't much to hear. Jake had handpicked his crew of 12 for this mission. They were good people, the kind who could handle months in deep space without going crazy or starting fights. The New Horizon wasn't built for comfort, just efficiency. Every system had a purpose, and there was no wasted space anywhere on the ship. The quiet was broken when Tony suddenly straightened in his chair. His headset crackled with something that made him frown and adjust the controls. Jake watched as the younger man's face grew more concerned with each passing second. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," Tony said, his fingers dancing over the communication board. "It's not coming from any human frequency, and the signal is really weak." Jake moved to stand behind Tony's station. "What kind of signal?" "I think it's a distress call, but I can't understand the language. The computer is trying to run it through the universal translator, but it's having trouble with the syntax." Tony pressed a few more buttons, and the bridge speakers filled with an alien voice speaking in rapid, desperate tones. Dr. Parker looked up from her work, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Play it again, Tony. Let me hear the speech patterns." The alien voice filled the bridge again, rising and falling in what sounded like panic. Even without understanding the words, everyone could hear the fear and desperation in the speaker's voice. Jake felt a chill run down his spine as he listened to what could only be someone's final message. "Got it," Tony said suddenly. "The computer has enough of a pattern now to start translating. Listen to this." The speakers crackled, and then a mechanical voice began speaking in English. "This is Fleet Commander Zethkar of the Villani people broadcasting on all frequencies. Our world is dying, and we have nowhere else to turn. A rogue star approaches our system, and its gravity is tearing our planet apart. We have perhaps 3 standard rotations before total destruction." Jake felt his stomach drop. 3 days. An entire civilization had 3 days to live. The message continued. "Our ships cannot carry everyone to safety. We have tried everything our science knows, but we are not a spacefaring people like others in the galaxy. If anyone receives this message, if anyone has the power to help, please respond to these coordinates. We are the last of our kind, and we do not wish to die forgotten." The bridge fell silent as the message ended. Jake looked around at his crew and saw his own shock reflected in their faces. Tony was already running the signal through the computer to get a location fix. Dr. Parker had pulled up star charts on her screen and was tracing possible routes. "Where are they, Tony?" Jake asked quietly. "About 18 hours at maximum speed, Captain. The signal is coming from the Kepler rim, right at the edge of unexplored space." Jake studied the faces of his crew. The New Horizon was a research ship with a crew of 12. They had basic medical facilities, limited cargo space, and no equipment designed for large-scale rescues. If this Villani world really was dying, there was probably nothing they could do to help. But he also knew that everyone on his bridge was thinking the same thing he was. Somewhere out there, billions of people were about to die, and they had just asked for help. "Dr. Parker, what do you think about this rogue star situation? Is it really possible?" Lisa pulled up stellar charts on her main screen. "Unfortunately, yes. Rogue neutron stars do exist, and they're incredibly dangerous. If one got close enough to a planet, the tidal forces alone could tear continents apart. The gravitational effects would be devastating." Jake nodded slowly. He walked back to his captain's chair and sat down, his mind racing through possibilities. The smart thing would be to report this to Earth Command and let them decide what to do. By the time any real help could arrive, it would probably be too late, but at least they would have followed proper procedure. "Tony, can you get a message back to Earth Command?" "Already working on it, Captain. But at this distance, even priority signals will take days to reach Earth and days more for any response." "And how long did the aliens say they had?" 3 days, sir." Jake closed his eyes and thought about his daughter back on Earth. She was only 8 years old and always asked him why he had to go so far away from home. He usually told her it was to help make life better for everyone. Now he wondered if she would understand what he was about to do. "I want everyone's opinion," Jake said, looking around the bridge. "We can report this and head home knowing we did our duty. Or we can respond to their distress call and see if there's anything we can do to help. I won't lie to you, if we go there, we might not come back." Tony was the first to speak. "My vote is we go, Captain. Even if we can't save everyone, maybe we can save some." Dr. Parker nodded. "I agree. We became explorers to help humanity reach the stars. This seems like the right thing to do." One by one, the rest of the bridge crew voiced their agreement. Jake felt proud of his people, but also worried about what they might be flying into. Still, the choice felt right in his heart. "Tony, send our response to those coordinates. Tell them help is coming. Then get me a priority channel to Earth Command." "What should I tell them, Captain?" Jake thought for a moment. "Tell them we've found a dying civilization and we're going to help. Also send them everything we know about this situation. If we don't make it back, at least someone will know what happened here." As the New Horizon changed course toward the coordinates, Jake wondered if they were heroes or fools. In 18 hours, they would find out which one they really were. The New Horizon dropped out of hyperspace 18 hours later, and Jake Morrison immediately understood why the Volani were dying. Through the main view screen, he could see a sight that made his blood run cold. The rogue neutron star hung in space like a dark monster, its incredible gravity already wreaking havoc on the Volani homeworld. The planet itself was coming apart. Jake watched in horror as massive chunks of land broke away from the surface and spun off into space. Entire continents were cracking like broken glass, with deep red magma glowing between the fractures. The ocean was boiling away into steam clouds that surrounded the dying world like a funeral shroud. "My God," Dr. Parker whispered from her station. "The tidal forces are incredible. That planet doesn't have 3 days, Captain. It has maybe 2. Tony's communication board was alive with desperate chatter from dozens of Volani ships. Most of the voices sounded panicked, but one signal came through stronger than the others. Jake nodded to Tony, who put it through the main speakers. "Unknown vessel, this is Fleet Commander Zethkar of the Volani Defense Force. Are you the ones who responded to our distress call?" Jake moved to the communication station. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human research vessel New Horizon. We received your message and came as quickly as we could." There was a long pause, then the alien voice returned. This time Jake could hear exhaustion and desperate hope mixed together. "Captain Morrison, I must thank you for coming, but I fear you have traveled far to witness only our end. Our situation is beyond help now. Commander Zethkar, we'd like to meet with you and see what we can do." "Can you dock with our ship?" Another pause. "Yes, Captain. I will come aboard your vessel. Perhaps we can at least ensure that someone remembers the Volani people after we are gone." Jake turned to his crew. "Tony, guide their ship to our docking bay. Dr. Parker, I want you to run full scans on their planet and give me exact numbers on how much time we have. Everyone else prepared to receive guests." 20 minutes later, Jake stood in the New Horizon's small docking bay as the Volani shuttle connected with their ship. The airlock cycled through its sequence and then opened to reveal Commander Zethkar. The Volani leader was tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and large dark eyes that held intelligence and deep sadness. He wore what looked like a military uniform covered in symbols Jake didn't recognize. "Captain Morrison," Zethkar said, his voice carrying a dignity that impressed Jake despite the circumstances. "I am honored to meet a member of the human race. We have heard stories about your people but never expected to encounter you here." Jake shook the alien's hand, surprised by how human the gesture felt. "Commander, tell me about your situation. How many people are we talking about saving?" Zethkar's shoulders sagged. "There are 2.8 billion Volani still on the surface of our world. Our largest transport ships can carry perhaps 10,000 individuals each, and we have only 43 vessels capable of interplanetary flight. Even working without rest, we could evacuate less than 1% of our population." Dr. Parker appeared at Jake's shoulder with her tablet. "Captain, I've run the scans. The planetary stress is accelerating. We have 48 hours at most before the surface becomes completely uninhabitable." Jake did the math in his head and felt his heart sink. Even if every Volani ship worked perfectly, they could save maybe 500,000 people. Over 2 billion would die. "Commander, you said you're not a spacefaring people. What do you mean?" Zethkar gestured toward his shuttle. We developed spaceflight only recently, Captain. Our ships are built for short journeys between nearby planets in our system. We never had the need or desire to travel between the stars like humans do. Our world was paradise enough for us. Jake looked at the shuttle through the docking bay window. It was sleek and beautiful, but he could see that it was designed more like an aircraft than a true spacecraft. These people had focused their technology on other things. What about your ground-based technology? Manufacturing, construction, that sort of thing? We excel in biological sciences and energy systems, but our industrial capacity is limited. We build things to last for centuries, not to be produced quickly. Zethkar paused. Why do you ask these questions, Captain? Surely you can see that the situation is hopeless. Jake walked to the viewport and stared out at the dying planet. Streams of debris and escaped atmosphere created flowing patterns around the world like cosmic waterfalls. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Commander, I need to send a message to my people. It's going to take some time to get through, and I can't promise anything will come of it, but I'm not ready to give up on your people yet. Zethkar moved to stand beside Jake. Captain, I appreciate your optimism, but surely you understand the mathematics involved. Even if your entire fleet came here, you could not transport nearly 3 billion individuals to safety. Maybe not, Jake said quietly. But humans have a saying, we don't know what we can do until we try. Jake left Zethkar in Dr. Parker's capable hands and headed for the communication center. Tony was already working on setting up a priority channel back to Earth. The signal would take hours to reach human space, but Jake had to try. Tony, I need you to send a very specific message to Earth Command. Are you ready? Ready, Captain. Jake took a deep breath. Message begins, Priority Alpha Emergency. Location, Kepler Rim coordinates follow. Situation, alien civilization facing extinction in 48 hours. Population, 2.8 billion individuals. Cause, rogue neutron star gravitational destruction. Local evacuation capability, less than 1%. Requesting immediate deployment of Project Lighthouse. Repeat Code Omega Rescue, requesting Project Lighthouse deployment. Captain Jake Morrison commanding New Horizon. Message ends. Tony looked up from his console with surprise. Captain, Project Lighthouse is still experimental. Do you really think they'll authorize it? I don't know, Tony, but if they do, we might just pull off a miracle. Jake returned to the bridge where Dr. Parker was showing Commander Zethkar the tactical situation on the main screen. The Volani leader studied the display with the careful attention of a military commander, but Jake could see the hopelessness in his eyes. Dr. Parker, have you calculated how many people we could evacuate with just our ship? Lisa checked her tablet. If we stripped out all non-essential systems and crammed people in like cargo, maybe 400 individuals. It's not much, Captain. Zethkar turned to Jake. Captain Morrison, you and your crew are brave to even consider this. But please do not sacrifice yourselves for such a small number. Your lives are worth more than a symbolic gesture. Jake smiled grimly. Commander, you don't know humans very well yet. We don't really believe in symbolic gestures. When we make a move, we make it count. Far away in space, hidden behind sensor blocking fields, alien observers watched the small human ship floating near the dying world. Admiral Krextal of the Hegemony shook his head as he reviewed the tactical situation. Admirable but pointless, he told his officers. The humans show courage, but courage cannot overcome mathematics. We will observe and record their noble failure. Back aboard the New Horizon, Jake stared out at the doomed planet and wondered if help would come in time. In his heart, he believed it would. Humans had a habit of doing impossible things when lives were on the line. 24 hours had passed since Jake Morrison sent his desperate message back to Earth. The Volani planet continued its death spiral, with whole mountain ranges now breaking away from the surface and spinning off into space. Commander Zethkar spent most of his time on the New Horizons bridge, watching his world die while coordinating the evacuation efforts of his remaining ships. Dr. Parker had worked through the night calculating rescue scenarios, but every simulation ended the same way. Even if every human ship in known space came to help, they could not save more than a few million Volani. The numbers simply did not add up. Tony Rodriguez monitored the communication channels constantly, listening for any response from Earth Command. So far, there had been nothing but empty static from the direction of human space. Jake tried to stay optimistic, but privately he wondered if his message had even reached its destination. Then everything changed. Tony suddenly sat up straight in his chair, his headset crackling with activity. Captain, I'm detecting massive hyperspace signatures at the edge of the system. Something big is coming through. Jake moved to stand behind Tony's station. How big are we talking about? Really big, sir. The energy readings are off the charts. Tony's fingers flew over his controls as he tried to make sense of the data. Captain, I count at least 50 separate signatures, maybe more. They're too big to be fighters. Commander Zethkar looked up from the tactical display he had been studying. Captain Morrison, are these your reinforcements? I hope so, Commander. But I've never seen readings like this before. The first ship to emerge from hyperspace was enormous. The UES Freedom materialized near the outer planets, its massive hull dwarfing anything Jake had ever seen. The colony ship was over 2 kilometers long and bristled with docking bays, manufacturing facilities, and cargo holds designed to support entire populations. But the Freedom was just the beginning. Ship after ship dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Cargo haulers that could carry entire cities. Passenger liners designed for long-range colony missions. Construction vessels equipped with industrial fabrication equipment. Military transports that could haul entire armies across interstellar space. And scattered among them, converted asteroid miners with their massive cargo holds and powerful engines. Jake counted 50 ships, then 100, then stopped counting as more kept arriving. Each vessel was larger than anything the Villani had ever built, and they moved with the precise coordination of a fleet that had trained together for years. My God, Dr. Parker whispered as she watched the display. Jake, how did Earth Command assemble this many ships so quickly? Before Jake could answer, Tony's communication board lit up with an incoming transmission. New Horizon, this is Admiral Patricia Hayes commanding the Emergency Response Fleet. We received your Code Omega message and came as fast as we could. What's the situation down there? Jake felt relief flood through him as he recognized the voice. Patricia Hayes was a legend in the human fleet, known for pulling off impossible missions with whatever resources she had available. If anyone could save the Villani, it would be her. Admiral Hayes, this is Captain Morrison. We have 2.8 billion civilians on a dying planet, and maybe 18 hours before total surface collapse. The local evacuation capability is minimal. Understood, Captain. We're going to need every bit of data you've collected. Transmit everything to my flagship immediately. Hayes paused, then continued. Captain Morrison, you and your crew did good work getting this information to us. Now let's see what we can do with it. But even as Jake watched the massive fleet take positions around the dying planet, he could not see how they would manage such an enormous evacuation. The ships were impressive, but the numbers were still impossible. Then something happened that made Commander Zethkar gasp in amazement. More objects began emerging from hyperspace, but these were not ships. They were massive cylindrical structures, each nearly a kilometer long and packed with industrial equipment. Jake had heard rumors about humanity's deep space construction platforms, but he had never seen one in person. Captain, Dr. Parker said, her voice filled with awe, those platforms are already beginning construction operations. They're stripping raw materials from the asteroid belt and manufacturing something. Jake watched in fascination as the construction platforms deployed clouds of mining, drones that swarmed over nearby asteroids like hungry insects. Within minutes, they were feeding processed metals and composites into massive fabrication systems that worked faster than anything Jake had ever imagined. Commander Zethkar moved to stand beside Jake, his large eyes fixed on the display. Captain Morrison, what are they building? I think they're making more ships, Jake replied, hardly believing his own words. He was right. The construction platforms were manufacturing additional rescue vessels in real time, using standardized components that could be assembled quickly and efficiently. These were not elegant ships like the ones that had arrived from Earth, but they were functional, and they were being built at an incredible pace. Tony's communication board chimed again. New Horizon, this is Commander Steve Collins on the UES Freedom. We're coordinating the evacuation from here. Can you patch us through to the local fleet commander? Jake gestured to Zethkar, who moved to the communication station. This is Fleet Commander Zethkar of the Villani Defense Force, Commander Collins. I must tell you that our ships are not designed for the kind of operation you are planning. Collins's voice came back calm and professional. Commander Zethkar, we're going to modify your ships to increase their passenger capacity. Our platforms can manufacture additional life support systems and passenger modules in about 6 hours. Will your vessels be able to accept external modifications? Zethkar looked confused. Commander, I do not understand. You wish to rebuild our ships? Not rebuild, Commander, upgrade. We're going to turn every available vessel into a high-capacity transport. Your cargo ships, passenger vessels, even your military craft. By the time we're done, each of your ships will be able to carry 10 times more people. Jake watched as the human fleet began its work with the kind of methodical efficiency he had only heard about in training simulations. The New Horizon received new orders to coordinate with a group of human engineers who would help modify the Volani evacuation ships. Dr. Parker pulled up the tactical display and began running new calculations based on the expanded fleet capacity. Her eyes grew wide as she worked through the numbers. Captain, if they can do what they say they're going to do, we might actually be able to evacuate everyone. The modified ships plus the new construction vessels plus the human fleet. It's still going to be close, but it's mathematically possible. Commander Zethkar turned to Jake with an expression of wonder and disbelief. Captain Morrison, how did your people prepare for something like this? How did you know to build these construction platforms and keep such a large fleet ready for deployment? Jake smiled as he watched the human ships work with perfect coordination. Commander, humans have been planning for the worst-case scenario for a very long time. We don't just build ships, we build systems. Every vessel out there can be reconfigured for multiple mission types. Every platform can manufacture whatever we need. We learned a long time ago that you can't predict what kind of help you might need. So you prepare to provide every kind of help possible. As the evacuation began in earnest, Jake realized that this operation was revealing something about humanity that even he had not fully understood. They were not just good at fighting or exploring or building things. They were good at solving impossible problems by thinking in ways that other species did not. The Volani were about to be saved, but Jake suspected that the real impact of this day would be felt throughout the galaxy for years to come. The evacuation had been running for 12 hours when the impossible happened again. Jake Morrison was watching the rescue operations from the New Horizons bridge when Tony Rodriguez suddenly looked up from his station with a shocked expression. Captain, we're being hailed by ships that aren't part of our fleet. The computer says they're using Galactic Collective identification codes. Jake felt his blood run cold. The Galactic Collective was the most powerful alliance in known space, made up of 12 advanced alien species. Humans had heard rumors about them, but had never made official contact. If they were here now, it probably meant trouble. Put them through, Tony. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of an alien ship unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The being who appeared was tall and elegant, with silver skin and forearms that moved with fluid grace. When it spoke, its voice carried the tone of someone used to being obeyed without question. I am High Counselor Vexara of the Zephalian Supremacy, speaking for the Galactic Collective. Human vessels, you will cease your operations immediately and withdraw from this system. Jake exchanged glances with Commander Zethkar, who had been coordinating with the Volani ships. The alien leader looked as surprised as Jake felt. High Counselor, this is Captain Jake Morrison. We're conducting a humanitarian rescue operation. Why do you want us to stop? Vexara's expression remained cold. Captain Morrison, this system falls within the neutral zone established by collective treaty. Your presence here with such a large military force constitutes a violation of galactic law. Military force? Jake could not hide his confusion. High Counselor, these are rescue ships. We're trying to save the Volani people from a natural disaster. Another alien appeared on the screen, this one wearing what looked like military insignia. Admiral Krextal of the Hegemony looked at Jake with obvious disdain. Captain Morrison, do not insult our intelligence. We have been observing your fleet. Over 300 ships with advanced construction capabilities and industrial platforms. This is clearly a military operation disguised as a rescue mission. Dr. Parker moved to stand beside Jake. Admiral, you can scan our ships if you want. We're not carrying weapons, we're carrying life support equipment and passenger modules. Krextal's laugh was harsh. Dr. Parker, any industrial platform capable of manufacturing rescue vessels can also manufacture weapons and warships. Your fleet represents a significant military threat to the stability of this region. Jake was starting to understand what was really happening. The collective was not concerned about treaty violations or neutral zones. They were worried about human capabilities. High Counselor Vexara, are you saying that the collective would rather let 3 billion people die than allow humans to demonstrate what we can do? Vexara's forearms moved in what might have been a shrug. Captain Morrison, the Villani situation is regrettable, but acceptable losses must sometimes be weighed against larger concerns. Your species has shown technological capabilities that were previously unknown to us. This requires investigation and evaluation. Commander Zethkar stepped forward, his voice filled with anger. High Counselor, my people have been asking the collective for help for over a year as this disaster approached. You told us that our system was not strategically important enough to justify intervention. Now you want to prevent others from helping us? Commander Zethkar, the collective's decision-making process takes into account many factors that your people cannot understand. We cannot allow unauthorized species to conduct major operations in space under our jurisdiction. Jake made a decision that would change everything. Tony, get me a direct line to Admiral Hayes on the Freedom. High priority. Within minutes, Admiral Patricia Hayes appeared on a second screen. Her weathered face showed the strain of coordinating the massive evacuation, but her eyes were sharp and focused. Captain Morrison, I understand we have visitors. Yes, ma'am. The Galactic Collective wants us to stop the rescue and withdraw from the system. Hayes studied the image of High Counselor Vexara for a moment, then smiled grimly. High Counselor, I'm Admiral Patricia Hayes, commanding the human rescue fleet. I think it's time we had a conversation. Vexara's elegant features showed irritation. Admiral Hayes, your fleet will withdraw immediately or face the consequences. What consequences would those be, High Counselor? The collective has over 5,000 warships positioned throughout this sector. Your 300 vessels, while impressive, are hardly a match for our combined fleets. Hayes nodded thoughtfully. High Counselor, before we continue this conversation, there's something you should understand about human operations. Commander Collins, bring up the fleet registry. A new display appeared showing the complete human force structure. Jake stared at the numbers in amazement. The rescue fleet was listed as Emergency Response Group 7. There were 23 other emergency response groups scattered throughout human space, each with similar capabilities. But that was just the beginning. The display showed mining operations, colony ships, cargo fleets, exploration vessels, and construction projects. Thousands upon thousands of ships and platforms, all working together as part of an integrated network that spanned dozens of star systems. Admiral Krextal studied the display with growing alarm. Admiral Hayes, this cannot be accurate. No single species maintains this level of space-based infrastructure. Admiral Krextal, every number on that display has been verified by your own surveillance operations. You've been watching humanity for years, but you only saw what we were doing in the systems closest to your borders. You never looked deeper. Dr. Parker pulled up another display showing human colonies and industrial bases. High Counselor, what you're seeing here represents less than 15% of human space operations. Most of our infrastructure is concentrated in the core systems, far from collective territory. Commander Zethkar looked at Jake with something close to awe. Captain Morrison, are you saying that this rescue fleet, which seems impossible to my people, is just a small part of what humans can do? Jake nodded. Commander, humans learned a long time ago that space is dangerous and unpredictable. We don't just build ships for one purpose, we build systems that can adapt to whatever we need them to do. Every cargo ship can become a transport. Every mining platform can become a constructor. Every colony ship can become a rescue vessel. High Counselor Vexara was studying the human fleet data with obvious concern. Admiral Hayes, if these numbers are accurate, why have your people remained in the outer systems? Why have you not attempted to contact the collective or expand into our territories? Hayes smiled. High Counselor, humans prefer to mind our own business. We build what we need. We help our neighbors when they ask. And we don't go looking for trouble. But when someone asks for help the way the Villani did, we respond. Admiral Krextal's voice had lost its earlier arrogance. Admiral Hayes, the collective has maintained galactic stability for over 1,000 years. The sudden appearance of a major power like humanity could disrupt the balance that keeps peace between species. Admiral Krextal, maybe it's time that balance changed. The Villani asked the collective for help and you told them they weren't important enough. They sent a desperate message into space asking anyone for help and humans responded. Which approach do you think leads to better outcomes? The conversation was interrupted when Tony's communication board lit up with new signals. Captain, I'm receiving messages from 17 different species asking for direct contact with the human fleet. They want to know if we provide the same assistance to other civilizations. Jake realized that word of the Volani rescue was spreading throughout the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. The demonstration of human capabilities was inspiring other species to reach out, and the collective's monopoly on interstellar relations was beginning to crack. High Counselor Vexara seemed to understand this as well. Admiral Hayes, we need to discuss this situation more privately. The implications of your fleet's capabilities extend far beyond the single rescue operation. I agree, High Counselor. But first we're going to finish saving the Volani people. After that, I think the galaxy is going to be a very different place. 6 months after the Volani rescue, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of humanity's newest deep space station, watching construction crews put the finishing touches on New Haven Colony. The station orbited a peaceful blue world that the Volani had chosen as their new home, and Jake could see their distinctive silver ships moving in graceful patterns around the planet's surface. The rescue had succeeded beyond anyone's wildest hopes. All 2.8 billion Volani had been evacuated with hours to spare before their homeworld finally broke apart completely. The massive human fleet had worked with mechanical precision, loading refugees onto every available ship, while the construction platforms continued manufacturing additional rescue vessels right up until the final moment. But the real changes had come afterward. Tony Rodriguez, now promoted to commander, appeared at Jake's side carrying a datapad filled with status reports. Captain, we just received confirmation from Earth Command. The Cooperative Worlds Alliance has gained its 47th member species. The Aquarian Federation just signed the charter this morning. Jake smiled as he reviewed the reports. The CWA had been Dr. Parker's idea, proposed during the intense negotiations that followed the Volani rescue. Instead of the old galactic collective model of powerful species dominating weaker ones, the new alliance was based on mutual aid and voluntary cooperation. Any species could join, and every member had an equal voice regardless of their military or economic power. What about the collective response? Jake asked. They're still split, Captain. The Zephalian Supremacy and the Aquarian Federation have both applied for CWA membership, but the Kraxan Empire and 3 other species have formed their own military alliance. Admiral Hayes thinks we might be heading for some kind of conflict. Jake nodded grimly. Not everyone had welcomed humanity's emergence as a galactic power. Some species, particularly those who had benefited from the old system of might makes right, saw human ideas about cooperation and equality as a direct threat to their dominance. Commander Zethkar approached from across the observation deck, moving with the dignity that had impressed Jake from their first meeting. The Volani leader now served as the CWA's first Secretary of Humanitarian Affairs, coordinating rescue and aid operations throughout the Alliance. Captain Morrison, I have news that might interest you. We just received a distress call from the Kepler system. A mining accident has trapped over 10,000 workers in collapsed tunnels on Kepler 7. Jake felt the familiar stirring of purpose that came with emergency situations. What kind of response are we looking at, Commander? The local government has requested immediate deployment of Emergency Response Group 12. They specifically asked for human construction platforms and rescue equipment. Zethkar paused. Captain, they also mentioned that this is the 5th time this year that a non-human species has specifically requested human assistance for disaster relief. This was the new reality. Word of human capabilities had spread throughout the galaxy, and species that had never heard of Earth 6 months ago were now requesting help with everything from natural disasters to industrial accidents. Humanity had become the galaxy's emergency response service, a role they seemed to fill naturally. Dr. Parker, now Director of Xenobiological Relations for the CWA, joined the group at the observation window. She carried the same datapad she had used during the Volani crisis, but now it was filled with information about dozens of different species and their specific needs. Jake, I've been reviewing the intelligence reports from our diplomatic missions. The impact of the Volani rescue is still spreading. We have over 100 species that have expressed interest in CWA membership, and at least 30 that have started modifying their own ships and industrial platforms based on human designs. What about the collective? Lisa's expression grew more serious. That's where things get complicated. High Counselor Vexara has been relatively cooperative, but Admiral Krextal and his faction are becoming more aggressive. Our intelligence suggests they're massing fleets near the border systems. Jake studied the peaceful scene outside the observation window, watching Volani children play in the zero-gravity recreation areas, while their parents worked on the colony construction projects. It was hard to believe that such innocent happiness might be threatened by those who preferred the old ways of doing things. Tony's communication device chimed with an incoming priority message. He read it quickly, then looked up with excitement. "Captain, you need to hear this. It's from the New Horizon." Jake's old ship had been refitted as a long-range exploration vessel and was currently investigating reports of previously unknown civilizations in the far reaches of space. Captain Rodriguez, Tony's younger brother, commanded the vessel now. "Put it through, Commander." Miguel Rodriguez's voice filled the observation deck. "Jake, we've discovered something incredible out here. There's an entire cluster of civilizations that have been isolated from the rest of the galaxy for thousands of years. They developed independently, and their technology is completely different from anything we've seen before." Jake felt his pulse quicken. "How many species are we talking about, Miguel?" "At least 20, possibly more. And Jake, they're in trouble. The same kind of stellar phenomenon that threatened the Volani is heading toward their cluster. But this time it's not just one planet. It's an entire star system with billions of inhabitants across multiple worlds." Dr. Parker was already pulling up star charts on her pad. "Jake, if Miguel is right, we're looking at a rescue operation that would make the Volani crisis look small by comparison. The logistics alone would be staggering." Commander Zethkar studied the data as Parker shared it with the group. "Captain Morrison, an operation of this scale would require resources from across the entire CWA. We would need to coordinate hundreds of ships, dozens of construction platforms, and support from every member species." Jake looked out at the Volani colony again, thinking about how one desperate distress call had changed everything. Now they were facing another crisis that could reshape the galaxy once more. But this time humanity would not be responding alone. "Commander Rodriguez, get Admiral Hayes on a priority channel. Tell her we need to convene an emergency session of the CWA Council. And Tony, start putting together a preliminary response plan. I want to know what we're dealing with before we make any commitments." As his staff scattered to carry out their orders, Jake remained at the observation window thinking about how much had changed since that day, when the New Horizon first detected the Volani distress call. Humanity had revealed its true capabilities to the galaxy, but in doing so they had also revealed their true character. They were the species that responded to cries for help. No matter how impossible the odds seemed, the galaxy was becoming a different place, one where cooperation and mutual aid were replacing domination and exploitation. But Jake knew that change was never easy, and there were still those who would fight to preserve the old ways. As emergency messages began flowing in from across CWA space, Jake realized that humanity's greatest test was still to come. The Volani rescue had announced their presence to the galaxy, but the next crisis would determine whether human ideals could survive in a universe where some species still believed that might made right. Outside the window, Volani ships continued their graceful dance around their new home, a reminder of what could be accomplished when civilizations work together instead of against each other. Jake smiled grimly and headed for the command center, ready to help write the next chapter of galactic history.